Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Tuesday morning, the 1st of July. In this video, I'm going to talk about, guess who? Bryan Kohberger. Well, late last night my time, I'm sure you've heard if you've been following the case. It came out that Bryan Kohberger has accepted a plea deal. He will plead guilty to all charges. So the 4 first-degree murder charges for murdering Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan and Xana on November 13th, 2022. And the burglary charge as well. The plea deal is to take the death penalty off the table. Reading the tea leaves, reading between the lines. Actually, if you do that, I don't think you would be that surprised that this has happened. It's been very clear in the recent months with the slew of defence motions that have been proffered to the court, and many of them have been denied. The defence has been all out to basically save Bryan's life. I think they knew the entire case was stacked against him. I think the evidence that the prosecution have is overwhelming. I think a jury would have found him guilty all day and all night. But then again, juries are unpredictable. You never quite know which way they're going to jump. You know, there could have been one juror who held out, who sparked a mistrial. If he was found guilty and the jury in the penalty phase decided to send him to death row, well, he's got all the appeals that he wants. If he wants them, he can have them forever and a day. So it would be many years before Bryan Kohberger actually faced the firing squad. But the defence has done their job and brokered a deal that will mean that Bryan Kohberger won't face the firing squad ever at all. No further appeals, nothing. That's it. Goes away, sits in a cell for the rest of his life. I know some people not happy about this, especially the victims' families. On News Nation, just a couple of hours ago, as I record this, Bryan Entin spoke to members of the family, and Steve Goncalves, Kaylee's dad, was on the same show. So just want to play you what Bryan Entin has found out about the prosecution's rationale for offering this plea deal. And we don't know the details yet. Was it the defence that approached the prosecution or vice versa? I imagine it would be the defence, but I'm not sure. Apparently there's a hearing tomorrow, Wednesday 2nd, for Bryan Kohberger to change his plea because he has a not guilty plea entered into the court record at the moment. So let's listen to Bryan.
So they started with every trial, there's always risks. As we conveyed, we feel very confident about the strength of the state's case. However, this does not eliminate all risks associated with trial. They talked about mistrial, hung jury, and the fact that this could result in the families having to go through the process again. They also said a month-long jury trial will impose an emotional, mental, financial, and physical toll on the families, friends, roommates of the victims without any certainty of an outcome. There would be some measure of finality if the defendant admits he was guilty of the murders. There is only one realistic way to get this type of closure, and that is through his entry of a guilty plea. So basically they were saying if the trial moved forward and he was pleading not guilty, they would have never gotten the satisfaction of a guilty plea. And this was interesting. They said that sadly, as many have experienced, there are individuals out there who believe in conspiracy theories about this case, believe the defendant to be innocent or support the defendant in some way. We know the sentiments of support of defendants have been unbearable. We can only hope that at least some of these people will turn their attention to other matters if the defendant takes responsibility and admits to his heinous crimes by pleading guilty. And the last reason they gave, the state believes the death penalty is warranted in this case. We've never wavered in that. However, they talked about how people can remain on death row for 30 or 40 years, which has happened in Idaho. There would be appeals, and that this would just drag on and on for the families.
I can understand all of those points. Relating to the conspiracy theories, well, I've always thought Bryan was the guy. Always thought it. And, I've lost subscribers over it. Oh, by the way, if you're not subscribed, the majority of people who watch my videos, and I keep forgetting to remind you, if you're not subscribed, the majority of people who watch my channel are not actually subscribed. And I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I've got 6 months. I can do it. It's completely free. All you've got to do is click the subscribe button. That's it. That's all. Actually, if everybody subscribed who's not subscribed, I'd be up to almost 200,000 subscribers. Anyway, back to the video. Conspiracy theories. There's always going to be those who think that Bryan's been coerced, who think that the state have engineered evidence against him. There's always going to be those people. Regardless of what Bryan Kohberger says, you know, if he takes the opportunity to speak during a court hearing and he admits it and he tells all, there's still going to be people who say that it's not real, that he's been coerced or this and that. But at least some of those people, maybe they'll accept that Bryan Kohberger actually was the guy. And although some of the families don't like the fact that Bryan is going to plea out, Judge Hippler has got to accept it yet. It's not a done deal. It's not a done deal till it's signed on the dotted line. Think about the witnesses. Think about the surviving roommates who are going to have to testify. Think about them. And if by some freak of nature there was a hung jury, they'd have to do it all over again. So, look, I think it's the best, and maybe once the dust settles, maybe the families will realise it. Look, my son was killed back in 2014. Different situation. It was a dangerous driver. It was not a brutal quadruple murder or anything like that. And the publicity, you know, there was only a little bit of local publicity. But part of me wanted him to plead not guilty so it would go to trial. But then I think a larger part of me was glad when he did plead guilty. And at the sentencing hearing, you know, we heard the evidence that they would have presented at trial, so we got to know all about the police investigation. I get it. I honestly do. I honestly get it. But for everybody, considering everybody, I think this is a good thing. But Steve is fuming, absolutely fuming. And he was on Banfield last night.
I would say ever since Hippler's demanded an independent investigation, they couldn't get away from this case fast enough. They've done everything to make this case go away. So I don't know what that entails, but he said he was going to have an independent investigator, and all of a sudden we seemed like we were on rails to get rid of this case and make a plea deal.
I don't know about that. I think the defence has been trying always, long before the leak, to take the death penalty off the table. And the amount of motions that they've put in about relatively small things like bushy eyebrows, you know, things that make your eye smile, I think it's been heading this way. I do.
He's guilty. We all know he's guilty. There's more than enough evidence. But it's tough. It's tough to put a community through this. And it could be bad for reputations and business identities, and there's fallout. But this isn't the will of the victims. This is just one person making a decision, and it doesn't reflect what we were asking for.
Well, the victims don't get a say. They get the opportunity to be heard. They have that right, but they don't get a say in the justice process. I'm sorry, they just don't. It's the same here as it is in the United States. They have that right to be heard, but that's it. Don't know how many of the families, Steve said it's the majority, feel the same as him, but let the dust settle, and then let's see what happens at the hearing tomorrow. Yeah. All right. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys. Yes, good boy. Okay. Yes. Good girl. Okay. Good girl.